My name's Jim Proser. This is the Princeton Classical Academy presentation for our first meeting of parents and speakers and members of the school board. We are a public charter school. We are using the Hillsdale curriculum as our curriculum, which is a classic liberal arts curriculum for education of grades kindergarten through 12. And with that, a brief review for those of you who aren't completely up to date on what the difference is between the schools. There are five types of schools, There's a private school, which we all know about, such as the Montessori School of Princeton, and that's $32,000 a year. Private schools range from as high as $42,000 in this area per year down to $11,000. So those private schools generally offer what they call a child-centered curriculum, which differs from the classic liberal arts curriculum that we're speaking about in an important way that they make primary the interests of the child. The child drives the curriculum, if you will. They follow the interests of the child, which is a relatively new theory in education, but that's what you get. Public schools, of course, there's no tuition, and they're the most popular, obviously. They have the state tax money that supports them. They have sports teams and after-hours clubs, which generally the private schools don't offer, or they do for a premium price. And the drawback of the public schools that they have a state curriculum with mandates. And that can be good and bad. There's a state learning standards, which is good, and then the state mandates, which some would argue is bad. So, and Manny, I'm going to rely on you to admit people once they come in to the waiting room. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's no problem, Jim.
Okay, great. Then the third choice is religious schools, which are a form of private schools. Recent checking now, the cost of the Stewart Day Sacred Heart School is $36,700 a year. So that is a private school with a religious aspect to the curriculum. There are public charter schools, which I've explained, for like Princeton Classical Academy, and those are granted an operating charter by the state. There is no tuition, and they are more flexible in their curriculum. But they're also more accountable to the state. So they have to show an actual real success track record to continue operations, or they will not be re-granted a charter by the state. And finally, there's homeschooling, which is on the face of it, a less expensive alternative, but if you do a quick calculation of 3 hours a day of instruction, which is the generally accepted idea of a homeschool, times 5 days a week times 50 weeks, you were talking about 750 hours, man hours of instruction time, or that's translates into 19 weeks. All right, Dana, we're going to start with you. Dana Wefer is a free speech and attorney, and she is going to speak to us about the state mandates and free speech. So take it away, Dana.
Hi.
Did I pronounce your name correctly? How do we pronounce your last name?
Wefer.
Wefer. Okay, good. All right.
Did you say it correctly? Usually people don't.
Yeah, I did.
That's good. See, it follows the grammatical rules. I don't know why people get it wrong.
All right.
So my name is Dana Wefer. I'm an attorney practicing in New Jersey. I practice primarily in the area of freedom. The last couple of years, that's meant something a little different than it did before then, which I was mostly doing free speech law. Personally, I'm a mom, and we homeschool our daughter. Very happy to do so. Do not want her in the public schools for a lot of the reasons that are, I think, apparent to many people today. So Jim reached out to me. He asked me to talk about the issue of free speech in the school because we have sort of a couple of tensions. But one of them is that we're seeing more and more sort of this issue of compelled speech, where people are being compelled to participate and their children are being compelled to participate in an ideology and ideologies that they don't necessarily agree with on a lot of controversial topics that are really political issues when we're talking about things like gender, race, and those sorts of issues, particularly, in the issue of like compelled speech in terms of using people's pronouns that you may not agree with, or you may have an issue that you just don't believe in the same things that they do concerning whether it's possible to change sex. So these issues are new. They haven't really existed before. Litigation is just beginning to start. When Jim first reached out to me, we talked about the fact that I have a case where a teacher left a private school. It was a private school, and the issue was that she had a number of students who were involved in transgender ideology and wanting to transition to another sex, and her Christian beliefs prevented her from being able to use the students' preferred pronouns because it went against her religious beliefs. And so this is an issue that's coming up more and more, but it's very much uncharted waters. It's funny, it's charter school. And so we'll have to see where it goes with regard to that. With regard to other issues of revolving around the same thing, just in terms of being able to grant girls privacy in bathrooms and things like that. This is a really big issue as well. And also goes into the First Amendment because it infringes on people's religious beliefs concerning whether they want to be in single sex spaces with the opposite sex. And so this is a big issue that's coming up. I thought I would sort of keep it short and then open it up to questions to see what people are interested in and what they'd like to learn a bit more about in terms of free speech in the schools or other issues that are coming up. Critical race theory is another one. It's really big. I have a lot of people reach out to me, not just in the schools, but also employers, because there's a lot of people who are being forced to go through trainings and other things where they're being subjected to these ideologies that make them uncomfortable or they don't agree with, and being forced to say things that they don't agree with. So
I do have a question though, Dana. What do you think? I mean, which way is this going for Mercer County parents? Is it getting more restrictive, more mandates? Or do you think that that's going to change? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, it's definitely getting worse. People are fleeing the schools. I mean, this is not from a legal perspective, but just from my perspective, being a parent of a young child, it's obvious that people who are seeking to leave the public schools is growing by leap and bounds. People are starting pods and charter schools and homeschool co-ops and communities because they recognize that there's ideologies that are creeping into the public schools that infringe on people's religious beliefs and personal beliefs in a very real way. And when you're talking about molding the minds of young children, this is something that parents really strongly oppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to get worse. In my opinion, leaving the public schools is important for young kids.
Are you involved, or do you know of any lawsuits or legislation currently going through the legislature that's going to change the position of the government, of the state government, or is it pretty much unchallenged at this point?
So there may be bills pending. I don't know. My personal feeling, given my experience in New Jersey, is that going through the legislature on these issues is not going to be very helpful just because of the way our state government is made up. I think that to the extent that we see reforms within the schools and see people beginning to be able to send their children to a public school and feel that it's a safe place for them, it's going to be through lawsuits filed in the federal courts. I don't think that going through the state courts would be very helpful.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Dana, I am not sure if you're aware of this, but 2 townships, Ocean and West Windsor, just have voted down, and they are the first 2 in our area that have been able to take it out of their schools again. So any of the sex education, any of the mandates, their parents have fought it. Their school board voted on it. The one that they voted down recently was in West Windsor. That was 2 nights ago, because the government has now opened it up to the schools. Originally, it started that it was government that was pushing, and we had to listen to government. So that was their way out, was that they could not vote it down because they had to follow government ruling. Now it's been put into the schools ruling. So parents have started to take some control in some areas. it appears that it's in more Republican areas. I hate to say that. I'm not pushing Republican over Democrat. I'm just letting you know the areas that are more Republican that are going against this are the two areas that were able to get it voted down and right now. And that's not saying that they will not be challenged again, but at this point in time, they did vote on it being taken out of their schools. So they're definitely, we're definitely trying as legislature, we're trying to back that up. We've been the underdogs a little bit, but it's not something that we believe in either. And so there are areas that are starting to win these fights. So,
okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pat. Pat is our future assemblywoman, everyone, those of you who came in late. So she's very much up on the legislature and the calendar in state Congress. So we're going to move on. Thank you. We're going to move on to Rick. Yes, Rick. You're muted. You're muted. Can you unmute Rick, Manny?
Here we go.
Yes, I do have a question just in terms of the different state mandates, how, and just in a practical sense, not asking anyone to pick sides or anything like that. You only have but so much time in a school day in which we allow the opportunity to be able to educate the young people. So if we have all of these different components and mandates that we need to address, where is there a cutoff point into where they say, okay, we will spend this much time on reading, writing, and arithmetic, this much on social issues, this much on political issues? How are the people who are pushing these mandates proposing that we break up the school day in terms of bringing in these different issues? I'm just asking from a practical point of view.
I'm going to answer that unless you want to answer that, Rick. I mean, Dana, the problem that we're having is why you can't opt out of it is because they are incorporating it into every single subject in everything that they do throughout the day. So they're saying that they can get away with it because they are adding it in. You could be having a math class and they will add it into the math class. So they're using the time in every single way that the children are in that school. And I hate to say that, but it's really detrimental to the children because it's being put in front of them every single bit of the day. So I want you to be aware of that. That's why we're asked. Originally, they said you could opt out, and now they're saying you can't opt. And we're saying, no, let people opt in. Don't let them opt out. Let people opt in if they want to. But now they're saying they can't because they've incorporated it into all of the educational aspects of school. So just so you should know that.
I'll add to that there's sort of like this other side where there's what we'll start to see is people bringing lawsuits saying that allowing kids to opt out or not teaching certain things is a violation of their children's right. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the concept of gender identity has been added to almost all of the anti-discrimination statutes. And so you have people who can very aggressively bring lawsuits saying, well, you're violating my child's rights because you're not using his or her preferred pronouns. And so there's this tension that develops, especially since we see these categories being given protected status in the law. And I think it puts public schools in a very difficult position because there's ultimately rights that people have different interests that are in competition with each other. And you know, as I think about how that might play out, I think it plays out differently in different states. I think that in New Jersey, I could very easily see the cases starting to go towards saying that, you know, that one student violated another student's civil rights because they addressed them the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Rick, why don't you go ahead and tell us that from a parent of a charter school students, and public school children, where you stand on this issue.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Jim, for the opportunity to speak. Welcome, fellow board members And also welcome to the parents and other guests who are here with us. I'm going to just quickly share what my family's journey has been in terms of educating our two daughters in the Princeton area. Initially, when we came to the Princeton area, what we wanted as parents was we wanted someone to partner with us in creating a baseline of moral character and also excellence in intellectual competence. And so we wanted to create that atmosphere at home, but we also knew that we needed a school to partner with so that we would have a place where our values were modeled, they were reinforced, and then that they were demanded. So this is what we were looking for when we initially came to the area with our young school children. Our first stop was the Riverside Public School. We enrolled our daughter in the pre-K program. And since we had done some homeschooling prior to that, we had an idea of what we wanted our daughter to be learning. So we had introduced phonics, we had introduced low-level cursive writing, of course, her numbers, colors, and so on. And what we found when we sent her to the school and we saw what she was being taught, it was basically arts and craft, basically coloring pictures, and it was not sufficient intellectually in terms of the stimulation that we were looking for. It wasn't that level of excellence in terms of intellectual competence. And also, as was mentioned earlier by Dana and Patricia, there are different mandates that were being introduced into the school in which we had concerns whether or not our moral code of ethics was going to be violated by what was being taught in the school. So that was our first stop, was the Riverside Public School. And so we removed my oldest daughter from that school. That was in pre-K. Our second stop was the Wilberforce School, which is a Christian school that has a classical curriculum. And we were very happy with the standard of ethics and the moral code that was being taught there. And we were also happy with the curriculum as well. But what we found, especially when my second daughter was born, is it became financially prohibitive for me to be able to provide shelter, food, and then send two kids to private school. It just was not happening. So they checked the boxes that we were looking for, but unfortunately, it wouldn't be fiscally responsible to go into bankruptcy or debt for the sake of educating their children, and we don't have a place to live. So we had to take my daughter out of kindergarten at the Wilberforce School. And then what we've found was a blue ribbon charter school, the Princeton Charter School. It was from K to 8th grade. And we were able to participate in a public lottery system. And my oldest daughter was able to gain enrollment. They prided themselves on a focus on reading, writing, and mathematics. And they were able to demonstrate through the performance of the students on standardized testing that they were performing a year and a half to 2 years above what the state requirements were. And so we were very happy with the educational the rigors of the curriculum. It was and the fact that it was accelerated. So my daughter, and I'll just stick to my first daughter, she finished 8th grade, and then what happened is Mercer County Technical School was opening up a 4-year STEM academy. And it was the first year that they were opening up. And so it was a competitive process. She took the test. She did well on the entrance exam, and the test scores that she was able to achieve on a state level from the charter school, as well as the input of the teachers and the administrators, she was able to secure a spot as one of the 13 students that were allowed into the school. So very quickly, first 2 years at the STEM Academy, she was able to complete the requirements to graduate high school. And so since she had 2 more years to go, and the school was on the campus of a Mercer County Community College, she was allowed to take college classes for her last 2 years of school in high school. And so by the time that she graduated from high school, she was 37 credits short of a bachelor's degree in biology, and she was able to secure interviews with Princeton, University of Pennsylvania, and MIT. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is it's not braggadocious or anything like that. What I would like to put forth is that we tried the public school, and it wasn't a fit in terms of the morals as well as the intellectual stimulation and demand that we were looking for. We tried a private Christian school, in which we were very happy with what we have received, but it was cost prohibitive. And then what we found at the charter school was a balance of what we were looking for and what we were able to afford and to provide for our children. And we felt like we had people who were, again, walking alongside of us and creating an atmosphere of moral excellence, and as well as, again, intellectual competence. And so I want to encourage any of parents or who are listening, that there is a way. It may not be the first school that you go to, it may not be the first exposure that you have, but if you seek to find people who are like-minded and looking to provide a atmosphere in which you can shape not only your children, but the other children, and work together as a team, it is possible. And it's something that we're looking to build at the Princeton Classical Academy. And I would strongly encourage you to get involved and take the time, know what you're looking for. And if the school does not meet your requirements, by all means, be willing to remove your child from that atmosphere and keep working and look for, again, like-minded people who are willing to work together, partner with you, and create an atmosphere, again, where they're motivated to do what you what you want them to do. Yes.
Oh, sorry, Rick. But you were admitted by lottery, right? They go by the lottery system. So it's not for everybody. It's not like you can just go there and sign up. Right.
That is
got to be lucky
point.
as well as smart.
Yes, there are two ways. If they show preference, if you live in the Princeton area, because the school is located in Princeton, and then if you have one child enter and they have siblings, they allow the siblings then to come in a non-competitive process. But yes, it is a public lottery, and that's how we were able to gain admission to the school. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So Susan, let me ask you, you have a pretty impressive career and background in really in child development. So speak to us a little bit about the building a character. What does it take to build character in a child beyond the, as Rick was referencing, the moral character of a child needs to be educated as well as the intellectual side. You're muted.
Yeah, you have to unmute yourself, Susan.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Rick, you were a great lead-in for this topic, and I appreciate your thoughts and what you went through. Actually, I have a son in California and grandkids out there. They went through the same exact thing. One of them is in parochial, the other two are in charter schools, but it's made all the difference in the way that they're performing. So as for me, child development, not necessarily, but I did run learning and development for a corporation, and I was a trainer in a big company for many years. And then I ran Big Brothers Big Sisters for 14 years, and we grew the agency from 100 children up to 615 when I left. So we, of course, work with a lot of the schools, and I have a lot of experience in that area. So my thoughts about how you build character, those are what we consider soft skills in a corporate world. But some of my thoughts are teaching listening skills. I mean, we don't do that. We don't do that in our schools that I'm aware of, but it will help the kids perform better in school. And as the kids get a little bit older, you teach them about active listening skills and how to ask the right questions to ensure that they continue to learn. How about encouraging kindness and consideration? How do you do that? You do it by offering volunteer opportunities. Some of those opportunities might be older kids, helping some of the younger kids, helping them with their homework, after school programs, things like that. And they really do work. We had a lot of after school programs where the older students mentored younger students, helped them with their homework because the parents were working and couldn't pick them up till like 5 o'clock. Supporting others, making new friends. So all under encouraging kindness and consideration. How about etiquette? The golden rule, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. It's about empathy, honesty, and just doing the right thing. Another thought is, of course, teaching respect, discussing respect, what it looks like, describe it as a form of consideration that takes in others' feelings into account, as well as etiquette, which kind of goes hand in hand in that with that. Self-esteem, very important. Promoting self-esteem helps the students see how students see and treat themselves better. Having a positive view of themselves will help them actually be more kind to others and share their own skills. It also includes striving for self-advocacy, and we do that by helping them understand their strengths and their talents. And a lot of kids really never understand their strengths and their talents when they're in school, and they have a hard time figuring out what the next step is beyond high school. So focusing on their strengths, their talents. Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to just tie that into what we were talking about last night when you developed a very unique outreach program to corporations and businesses where the kids would actually go out into the real world and be mentored by adults and business leaders in the community. So I think that what I'm looking for there is that I think connects to character, because they meet real world adults who they have to operate with in a professional environment, so they can learn very quickly what is proper, what is proper etiquette, what is proper behavior, and what isn't.
Well, and they did. We had 6 workplace programs. I started those. It's probably like the one thing I did that I'm most proud of at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And we actually bused students from the high schools into the workplace where they had a corporate mentor. And they went twice a month for 2-hour visits. First hour, they would learn all about the company, what it does at a high level, how it made money. Usually the CEOs came in and met the kids, and then they would learn about all the different departments, the careers in those departments, and then they would spend the next hour one-to-one with their mentor and have lunch with them. So the mentor would really get to know them on a personal level and try to help guide them in their careers. Extremely successful programs. You had a lot of big companies that are still participating: Bloomberg, NJM Manufacturing, New Jersey Insurance, Princeton University, Solvay Chemical, St. Francis Medical Center. So kids that were interested in pursuing like nursing and things like that, they get these mentors, and it really helped all of them figure out what they were going to do beyond high school. It's a fabulous program, very easy usually to arrange, and the businesses pay for it. So the businesses pay. Big Brothers Big Sisters provides all the insurance. They provide a coordinator, a case manager that goes along to all the sessions. Sometimes the schools send a teacher, but everything's documented, and we document the progress of the child. We get the input from the child, from the mentor, and it's all good stuff.
But you were talking to me about also the parents noticed that the child carried himself differently, presented himself differently, grew as a character, as a person after interacting with these adults.
They learn a lot of the workplace etiquette. And so the kids started dressing better, speaking better. They started caring about their appearance. They all have changed tremendously. And by the way, these mentors help them all get into the next career step in their life. A lot of them did go off to college. They helped them with their college applications and whatever they needed to make that step. Some of them even went as far as taking them to visit colleges. And they did it outside of the program, and they can do that if the parents were okay with it. But great program. And again, we had 6 of them. So it's about taking a school and partnering it with a local business. And again, just getting these kids into a business. I mean, can you imagine when we were kids doing that, going into a business and learning about everything? I think my life may have been different. I don't know, but I was one of 8 kids. I didn't get a lot of attention. So,
That's great. That's great.
yeah. So, but helping these kids understand their strengths and talents, I think that's huge. And, and making sure they're getting positive feedback, because it's going to help them make better choices in life. Another one I have thought is instilling motivation. It's essential to building character in and out of school, teaching them to try harder, to work through their mistakes, their failures, to get how to get work done, and to learn new skills. So again, I had the opportunity to work
let me ask you, can you integrate that into a school situation? I'm thinking, of course, of Princeton Classical Academy. Could we integrate a program like that into a traditional school scenario?
I'm not an expert in that. I would imagine that it could. I would think that it's certainly possible. It's funny. I used to teach classes in corporate on some of this stuff. How you marry it with a school curriculum is another question. I'd have to put some more thought into that.
All right. Well, I'll put my best man on it. Mark Iorio, you're on.
Sue, thank you for that. I mean, I sat on the board at Trenton Catholic Academy for about 7 years, and there's a number of mentorship programs that I think we can incorporate into Princeton Classical Academy and local businesses. I think a lot of what you talk about, Sue, and the work that you did at Big Brothers Big Sisters, applies directly to what we can incorporate in some of the whether it's after school programs, it could be mentorship programs or whatever. But look, it doesn't have to be part of the day-to-day curriculum. It could be something that we offer, these kids for, additional credit or whatever. But I think it's incredibly important, and I've seen it work, Sue. I've seen it work at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and a lot of the folks that we worked with together were really actively involved in that. By the way, I sat on the board of the School of Business Advisory Council for TCNJ for 17 years. And the problem exists at college level too. It's not just in high school or grammar school. These kids that are in college, it's the same thing. They need mentors. They need to understand how business works. There's a big gap between academia and the real world or the business world. So,
right.
There's great opportunity here, folks.
Thanks. And I don't want to make this, and you're still muted. You're muted. Not Pat, Sue. Can you help her, Manny? Can you help unmute?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, having that one-to-one mentor makes all the difference for the a student, and that is a great way for them to really learn about their strengths and development areas, and it just really prepares them for the real world. And again, all these schools, we found that we tried doing them after school, and it didn't work because everybody wanted to get home, they wanted to go out, they wanted to be with their friends. So we actually talked to schools into allowing students to go to these corporations twice a month, 2-hour visits. So they had a full 2 hours in the business, and then you had to add your travel time into that. And what the schools found, that it was well worth it, because the students started performing better. We interviewed all the parents, we interviewed teachers, and of course the students themselves, but they all performed better, and as a result of having this one person help them. And they all had a much better understanding of what their career options were and next steps that they wanted to take. So an invaluable program.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, you would have enjoyed that, Rick, right? You would have appreciated that for your girls, having the ability to go out into the yeah. All right, Pat, our future assemblywoman, we're going to ask you to bring us home here with your, how do we get this into the legislature? How do we make this, get the state off our parents' backs? How do we do
Okay,
this?
first of all, I want to say something.
Yeah.
I am a nurse and I have worked in education for the last 10 years.
Okay.
So education is something that I truly, and I did family child care. But I want to say, the very first thing I want to say before I go into my topic is that we are pushing for vouchers, for school vouchers. And that's something that you need to look at and you need to follow the legislators that are looking for it, because we want to have parents be able to spend, because of this, because of where we're going in this country, we want to give our parents the ability to spend their tax dollars where they see fit for their children. So that would mean that if we get them through, and we have many of us fighting for that, that you would be able to use the dollars from your taxes to put your child in a Catholic school, a charter school, a private school, or whatever you would wish. And it's something that we really believe we need to do. If they're not going to work with us to change education in this area, we need to fight to get education the way we want it. We are the parents. We have the rights to see what is fit for our children, and we need to work for them. So I really want you to look at what's out there, and when you are making a vote, see who is fighting for these things, because it's something that you need to address. Because the standards that are being followed within our schools violate the traditional and biblical, moral, and sexual values that we want for our children. We are no longer teaching the way we were taught. Our children are being taught by test scores. And that you need to understand. When we talk about the different kinds of education, we have tests that the school needs to rank, that ranks the school. So instead of them teaching what the children need, they're teaching what they need to, and this is not a state issue. This is a governmental issue. We need to go back to true education, which is why it's so important to look at other schools that your children can go to. How can we teach our children? And I'm going to use this subject because it starts from young. Math. If they don't know everyday math, how are they ever going to do algebra? How can we teach them history if they can't be taught the past? You can't learn about the future because you always need to know about the past. There are so many issues. We're not teaching our children how to sign, how to write, because they say there's a computer. We need to still have penmanship. We need to still have writing. There's things that we have begun to leave out of education. We're not allowing children to be children and learn in the process that they are capable of learning in. As a daycare provider, I have 2-year-olds that I have reading, writing, they know Spanish, they can speak sentences because we put that time into them. They are a sponge, they will learn. We can't look at age, we need to look at what is appropriate that they can learn. And you ask if we can do programs. I'm trying to stabilize programs within our high schools to allow children that don't want to go to college, that want to go to labor. We're now trying to get labor degrees because every parent wanted their child to have an education. But we talk about infrastructure, but we don't talk about how you get there. How can we have infrastructure if we don't have labor? And this starts out from what we teach our children at a very young age. We need to work the children and allow them to be children and learn at their pace. And I believe we can do that in a charter school. We can give them so much more because you're not so concerned about whether you're Lawrence High School is one of the top ranked high schools in this area. And do you know that their grade average is a C? They are only ranked a C. How can you look at that and feel comfortable? I mean, I have report cards for education. I will be more than happy to give them to you. These aren't mine. This is what you can look up. I have what the test scores are. We have gone downhill, and you're seeing it every single year if you really look into it. We need to go back to good education. And I believe in Princeton Classical Academy. I believe we can do it there. I believe we need more of that, and fight to be able to use your dollars the way you want to use them. So I know you don't want me to talk, and I'll talk way too much, so I'm going to cut it.
No, I want you to talk.
I really believe that we need to work on education.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting a commercial for Princeton Classical, but thank you very much for that.
No, well, it's one of many. I'm not saying you're the only one, but we have to find a different avenue. And so
absolutely.
I was asked to be on the board. I love it because I believe, like Susan does, I'm doing, like I said, with labor. I have grandparents that come in and work with kids. How many kids don't get to see a grandparent or know what an elder is, to respect that elder? So hey, kudos. So I'm sorry.
That's all right. Is that you?
Yeah, I'm gonna mute myself. So
okay, all right, very good.
So this is off topic, and it doesn't have to do with free speech, but when I was in your waiting room to get into the Zoom call, I saw that the slogan had to do with true, good, and beautiful.
Right.
And so I just wanted to share, I hope this isn't too off topic, but the curriculum that we use for my daughter is called The Good and the Beautiful. Okay. And it's a wonderful curriculum, and your slogan for your school really made me think about that, and what an enriching and wonderful thing it is to fill your child's mind with beautiful art and beautiful imagery and beautiful poetry. And that, especially when they're very young and you train their mind to think in this way, I think it really affects the way they perceive the world. And I really don't think, like, I look at the art, just like the art that you see in textbooks today, where like people are missing faces and it's all abstract and weird. And so when I saw your slogan, it really resonated with me, because I think that introducing children to the good, the beautiful, and the true is such a lovely mission.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you know, it's the classical liberal arts education. We're not really doing anything special. We're doing things basic, but we're doing, hopefully, you know, heart-centered and the intelligent way to bring kids into the real world. You know, that's why, you know, Susan is so important in bringing kids into businesses, and especially in this region. We see your hand, Werner, by the way. We're coming right to you. We see there's such a rich history of art in this area, Bucks County, and you know, New Jersey. It's just you can throw a stone and hit a museum in this area. So thank you very much for your comment. Thank you very much for that. Okay, Werner, you're up.
I just wanted to build on that. The reason I'm interested and excited about the team that's been assembled and the prospect of getting this school up and running is because you do expect the schools to embed in the kids a sense of good. I don't mean good as in terms of, you know, moral. I mean, just that life is good, you know, that being a good citizen is good. And I think the common thread in the things that are most upsetting to most of us, whether it's CRT, whether it's the transgender agenda, you know, whether it's the lack of patriotism in school, is that they do seem to, you know, almost extol vice over virtue. They come from an angle that is divisive, that put kids, you know, in a mindset of animosity and as opposed to camaraderie. And those things are bad. And so when we talk about the true, the good, and the beautiful, you know, perfect example is the book George that I fought to get removed from the Hopewell curriculum. Right. George is a transgender book. And aside from the transgender ideology, it's just a poorly written book with crude passages about vomiting and, you know, private parts and all kinds of stuff, which just doesn't belong, especially in the hands of sixth graders, which it's approved for, and it's just a lewd book. So aside from the gender ideology, it's trash. And when I brought up that they should be, learning from, kind of the time-honored classics which extol a virtue or build the child's character or make them feel the camaraderie of life and the patriotism of this great country. Once you put this on, the plate's only so big and something else falls off, and what falls off are all those other classics, and so whether it's the CRT or anything else, I think the problem is that it's filling our kids with non-good, and we do have to get them out of that caustic environment, or they're going to grow up cynical and nasty and suspicious of each other, and it's just going to be a bad cultural turn for this country. And I think we're doing a good thing by providing an alternative.
Thank you very much. Manny, I'm putting into the chat here, and for some reason my chat isn't letting me select everyone. So it's going to come to you. If you would post it. What I'm putting in here, everyone, is a link to our video, which is princeton-classical.academy/YT for YouTube. Princeton Classical, one word, .academy/YT. And I encourage you all, if you haven't seen the video after we get done here today, to go and see that video, and that will give you a very clear idea on the good and the true and the beautiful that are being taught in the curriculum that we're intending to use. Thank you all. I appreciate it. You're all going to get a little email with a little gift in it from me, a book that I think you might find helpful and useful in your travels. And I hope you all will stay well, stay happy, and pursue the good, the true, and the beautiful. Good night, everybody.